All right. So welcome to Real Estate versus Technology. Today we have a very, very special episode with someone that has taken months to get on the show. I have to say it's a big thanks to this gentleman here, our co-host, Mr. Dan Gandy. If it wasn't for you, Dan, I don't think we would ever have this individual on the show. How are you doing, Dan?
Doing great. This is a monumental day. Like I said to one of my friends today, it's love to connect with people in the business, but Sharran's one of those few that I think you leave anything you listen or view with value and massive impact. So I'm ready for it.
Let's go. And I remember you went from EXP and you're thinking about where to go. And a lot of agents out there are thinking about EXP, real, where do I go? What do I do? And this whole podcast isn't just about that. It's more about going deeper with individuals that are associated with these organizations that are absolutely crushing it. And I believe that we have a man on the show right now, the VP of Real Realty, that has a whole dollar salary on an annual basis. You just come from love, here to serve, to show up, and just to help this amazing organization. Actually, Sharran, I heard on one of the podcasts that you wrote down the business model of what you wanted to do with potentially a brokerage because you had a 5-year non-compete. And then next thing you know, you met the CEO of Real Realty, and it was like, man, like this is exactly what I put down. And that's how the conversation started.
Yeah, so I appreciate you guys having me. So the everyone's story and getting into real estate is kind of wild, right? So what we did is the goal was to never actually do anything in real estate. I was an investment banker on Wall Street when I got into this real estate business. And the interesting part there was my business partner and I actually invested in a small real estate brokerage in Beverly Hills. And wow. I knew nothing about the real estate business. I'd bought and sold homes for myself and some investment property, but I had no idea how any of this works. And then I got one of the statements one day, and it looked like a P&L statement. It looked like something looked fishy. We just found out that the then CEO of that business was embezzling. So wow. What I did, I actually took a leave of absence from my being an investment banker at Goldman Sachs. I flew to California, and the idea was say, well, what do I do with this business? So it had one office in Beverly Hills and 22 agents, 23 agents. And I said, I got to figure out and hire a CEO for this role. So couldn't really figure out. It was 2010. We were just kind of getting out of the great financial crisis. And I'll tell you, this is truly what happened. I was building a model. And as I was building this model, we were roughly doing 280-ish million because in Beverly Hills, that's what it was. And I added an extra zero. So roughly 300, it was 300 million, I added an extra zero. So 3 billion. And I looked at all these numbers. I was like, what happened to all these numbers? It looks amazing in this P&L. And I realized that there was an extra zero. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. If this is what this business can actually do, maybe I should run this. So I actually left Wall Street and decided to, we bought the then founder out, and I took over to run the business. We went from one office and 30-ish agents when I started to 22 offices and 700 agents. And so we grew 10x in 5 years. We were doing roughly, we did $3.4 billion in sales, roughly $5 billion in annual kind of gross sales. And we got bought by Douglas Elliman, which was it was undisclosed, it was one of the largest transactions in the United States. And I had a 5-year non-compete. And so during that time, I was like, man, the world's changing a lot. What if I were to do all of this all over again? Because then I was handed this luxury traditional brokerage model. Yeah. Big, beautiful office spaces. I mean, we had, several 100,000 square foot of Class A space in Southern California. Like, that is not cheap. Like, I'll tell you that right now. Right. And so I was like, if I were to do the model differently, what would I do? And so the first thing that came to mind, I was a banker on Wall Street. I'd taken several companies public. So I was like, if we went public, it would be great because it would give agents ownership in something. It was not just private equity that you gave to people. So they could actually feel it, sense it, et cetera. That was number one. Yeah. Second, I was like, well, we had these 15,000 square foot offices on Rodeo Drive. And I would walk in for an office meeting. I could throw a football through the office. There was nobody. Wow. There was nobody there. Right. And I'm like, we pay $400,000 a month in rent and there's nobody here. Right. And so I was thinking, wouldn't it be amazing if I could just take that $400,000 and give it back to Dan? Like, that would be interesting. Right. So I said, would a virtual model actually work? But then when you think about a virtual model, the problem is, how do you build culture? And I actually, so the interesting part is I actually got a book deal with a publisher, and the title of my book was Culture in the Cloud. That was the title of my book. And I wrote it 3 or 4 different times, and I didn't like it. So I returned my initial advance to the publisher, and that became the 3 things that were important. 1, have a publicly traded umbrella to give agents liquidity. Number two, be virtual. And number three, have culture in the cloud. And so when I met Tamir and the board in a consulting capacity, several of the teams that I was advising at that time were thinking about coming to Real. And so that's how I got introduced to Real, because the teams that I was advising were wanting to come to Real. So it was a super interesting way of that. So in a long-winded way, when I met with Tamir, I was like, hey, here is the plan that I wrote. And he's like, dude, like, we have 80% of this already. If you just came to run this business, you know, it would be amazing. So in December of 2022, I was named president of Real. And so I started as we were roughly 6,500 agents when I started. Today we have, you know, over 11,000. So almost twice the size of the business in under 6 months.
Wow, that's an amazing story. Congratulations. And I wanted to start there because I was watching a couple of podcasts and we talked about this. Like, this is Unleashed. We're just going to be upfront and honest. We're not going to sit here and pick battles, and it is what it is. And we just want to be able to give different people a different perspective of like, hey, like, who is Sharran? What is he up to? What is he doing? And like, you've had massive success. I can only imagine. I just want to ask you a question. It's kind of a little selfish, but I think people also are curious, like, mindset. Like, you're talking about growing to that capacity within 5 years. I mean, is that just because you've already been like set the dial, you've done it before, so you just rinse and repeat, or what, man? This is amazing.
It's tough, right? So there's this really interesting concept which is called minimum standards, and I'll give you a 10-second story around this. So my roommate from college, right? He told me, he's like, hey, Sharran, when I graduate, I want to live in Chicago. And he's like, for me to live in Chicago at that time, you know, I'm a little older at that time. He said, I need to make $60,000. I want to live in downtown Chicago in a doorman building. I want to drive a Honda Accord. So I need to get a job for $60,000. Like, he was very specific as to what he wanted. And lo and behold, what do you think he got? He got a job at IBM for $60,000.
Yep.
Right. And you think this is like the secret or whatever. It's not. And here's the crazy part. 3 months out of him living in Chicago, so sad. His sister got really sick and lost her job and needed medical care and non-insurance coverage, etc. And so her medical bills were roughly 50 grand a year. So suddenly he had to go to making $130,000 from 60,000. Think about that, right? 60 to 130 in 3 months. And so now he immediately switched his world and said, I need to make $130,000. I'm not joking. Lo and behold, like 30, 60, 90 days later, he got a new job for $130,000.
Oh my
right?
God.
The interesting part is not the secret. The interesting part is this concept called minimum standards. And the minimum standards are something that you not only will tolerate, but is your absolute baseline. And what is the difference of someone? What is Kobe Bryant's minimum standard? It is 3:45 a.m. That's his minimum standard. He just believes that 8 hours on the court is what he believes, right? What is Elon's minimum standard? Well, Elon's half alien, so he's got different minimum standards, right? But he just thinks about the world differently. And I think if everybody can listen to just this thing and that's all they get out of it, minimum standards can either be forced upon you, like it was for my college roommate with his tough situation with his sister, and now you have to forcefully raise it, or you can just choose it. The end result is exactly the same, right? So if I just chose, so if my roommate Colin, coming out of business college, just said his minimum standard was to get a job for 130,000, and he actually truly built, he would get there, right? And so I think the reason why we read books and read autobiographies and listen to big stories is it forces us to reshake our system to lift our minimum standards. So when someone gets 1 million views on Instagram and you know that they're not that special, you're like, well, I can do that too. What does that mean? You're forcing the raising of minimum standards, right? And I love that because it allows us to raise minimum standards. So from a mindset perspective, I'll ask you a very simple question. If you lost everything that you have right now, but you were able to retain your experiences and your learning, and if you lost everything that you had right now, would you be able to do it faster than you did it over the last 10 years?
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Right. What is the difference? The difference is we just think differently, right? We just think better. And I think that we undermine how powerful that is, right? And I'll give you the hack around this. And my coach taught me this. And she said, she's like, hey, you have to figure out how to language your thoughts, because if you can't language your thoughts, there's no belief system around it. You have to language your thoughts. So I write down my thoughts every morning, and not like an affirmation type thing. Like I'm writing down, stacking proof. This is who I am. This is what I've done. This is what I'm capable of. And because fear has no place on paper. Like fear has no place on paper, right? When you write something, you're like, oh, I'm not afraid of that anymore. And so when you can put language around important things, it's very easily accomplishable. So when people poo-poo vision, mission, values, and things like that, you don't need it to look at it all the time. But when you get a chance to like put language around it, it makes it so much more approachable. And that's why I think this is like that concept is. So I like to just put language around a lot of things.
Wow. I gotta say, I love that. I'm just gonna have to round of applause real quick, because that is so true. At the end of the day, I don't think people really understand. It's like draw the line in the sand already. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And there's so many real estate professionals out there that's doing this. And like you look at like 90% of the business done by the top 10% of real estate professionals. And I see that you guys are getting more market share. And I could just see that how you're raising the bar standard. Real Realty, I really feel like is going to be a force to working with. I mean, Andy's there. He's amazing. And you have so many more amazing people on staff too. And I love that. I love that.
I was going to say something here that I think is kudos to Sharran, is that the company pivots quickly. We're always trying to innovate. In the time that I first logged into the dashboard till now, right, is like the fastest growing tech company in a real estate business I've ever seen. Like we have way more tabs. There's way more going on. Like we're integrating all these different tools. And I think that is what I was looking for. And this is not a pitch to any brokerage, but that's what I was looking for, is pivot power and the ability to be agile in a very fast-paced, changing environment. So Sharran, let's touch on that. How does that make an agent more effective and being able to reap the best rewards or compensate themselves to make this a real career?
Yeah, it's super simple.
Yeah.
Success loves speed. That's it. Success loves speed, right? The interesting part is we spend so much time thinking about, oh, let me go get this postcard and cut my face out and put your face in. Like, that's the shit in the world. Like, that is so dumb, right? Because you think that you can show up on a conference stage and take someone else's postcard. Like, I'll give you a simple story. I still go on, when appropriate, I go on listing appointments with our agents. In fact, I went on a $7.5 million listing appointment this past weekend with one of our agents, which is cool. I like to actually do that. And I went on a, over $1 billion worth of listings taken in under 12, 18 month period. And I wrote down every single question that a seller had asked in the appointment. So I'd finish the appointment, I would get in the car, and I would write every single question that Dan asked me, right? So after a while, I built this 10-page listing presentation book. Now, it doesn't matter what's in the book. It's just the organization of thoughts, right? And one day someone is like, well, Sharran has his, $1 billion listing presentation book. If I got it, it'd be great. And I was like, dude, just because you have Tiger Woods clubs doesn't make you Tiger Woods, right? And so people have this thought process. So to answer that question, Dan, success loves speed. And whatever we can do to move and shake the tree, the better, right? So when people are like, well, I'm just going to wait for the best CRM system so that I can send out a mass blast. I'm like, no, you copy paste everyone from your Excel spreadsheet, you put it in BCC on your Gmail, and you hit send, right? If that didn't work, why would a bomb or a follow-up box work any better, right? And you can send up to 250 messages with people in BCC. So a lot of times I tell people, so I'll give everybody a pretty tactical idea. If you're a real estate agent anywhere in North America right now, and you want to activate clients in your database, you should do something what I call the deal of the week. The deal of the week, a very simple idea where it has no pictures, so no property pictures, no link to any IDX site or Zillow or whatever, and no address. No address. So what you say is, hey, the subject line, and you may say, like, I can't believe he's telling me a subject line. I will, because what the average agent will do is they'll say, beautiful craftsman of 3 bedrooms in I'm like, no one cares, right? So what you want to do is you want to just, in the subject line, say, Portland, deal of the week. That's it. So now when I see it in my inbox, I don't even care that it's from Dan. I'm like, Portland, I resonate with it. Deal of the week. Oh, wait a minute. Like, I have some curiosity to it. So I open it. Say, this week's deal of the week is special and it'll go fast. Wait a minute. I want to read this. And just 5 bullet points. A couple of bullet points about the home, a couple of bullet points about the neighborhood, a couple of bullet points why you like it. very simple, and then the price in bold. But here is the call to action. If you're interested, just reply, and I will get you all the details. I'll say it again. If you're interested, just reply, and I will get you all the details. Not call me, because they're not going to. They're sitting on the throne reading this email. They're not going to call you, right? No, but this is the truth. People forget this, right? And why are they going to reply? They're going to reply because there's no address, there's no picture, there's no link, because now it forces curiosity on the reply. So if you send it out, and most people don't have email marketing, I would literally copy paste your leads, put it in BCC, hit send. Like, you will get, your phone will light up like a Christmas tree, because everyone's like, oh, I want to know more. Where is that? Is it this? You'll get the questions. But the cool part about that is all conversion happens in conversation. So you're forcing conversation. That's all it is. So if someone was struggling today to just generate ideas and generate conversations, so leads are not the answer, conversations are the answer, right? Yeah. So I don't want 100 more leads. I want 100 more conversations. I don't need all the conversations to work tomorrow. I just need conversations, because I know that when I'm in the slipstream of conversation, I can create more conversation. Yes. So I want to explain to people that you can do simple stuff fast to just get more conversation. So Dan, when we build technology or when we're implementing new stuff, my conversation with the team is, don't wait for a big release. Like, you've got 3 new like, launch it. Let's make sure it works. And then you'll get some feedback. Like, Dan will say, hey, that didn't work. Thank you so much. Like, when someone gives feedback, thank you so much. And then, because the only people that give you feedback are the people that care, right? Nobody that does not care gives you feedback. And then you take that and you fix it. And then you say, Dan, we fixed it. What do you think? Now Dan has more confidence in what we're doing, right? So I always think about this. Success truly loves speed. The only time you have to slow down, right? The only time you slow down is when you're presented with a decision choice. If the decision is reversible, then there's success loves speed. If the decision is not reversible, then we probably slow down, talk to some mentors, figure out whether making the right. Otherwise, then you're like, you made a fast decision and you feel like an idiot when you did that, right? Yeah. But so I think that the speed component should happen no matter what. But if it's irreversible, I would offer that we take a little bit more time to think about it. Wow.
And on the irreversible note, I mean, it's not irreversible, but as an agent progresses in their career, and they're getting more and more successful, but they may be thinking about changing brokerages. It's kind of they need to slow down and do their due diligence. So, like, how can you jump on that idea for a minute? Just on, we don't even have to go into Real or anybody, but
no, yeah,
I think that's super important to agents listening to this. Is like, when do you pivot when it comes to your career?
Yeah. So this is really good. I'll answer this in like 2 ways. So let's give some people some framework, right? Framework number 1. Whenever I'm looking at an agent's business or anybody's business, I'm looking at it through 3 lenses. The first thing I say is, okay, I call it the GPS: goal, plan, support. So first I'm like, hey, does Dan know exactly what he wants? Because I can't tell Dan what he wants. Does Dan know exactly what he may not know it? But if he doesn't know what he wants, then I need to first get clarity around that. So I always tell people, you need to have some kind of goal so that you can have people help you. So some kind of goal. Yeah. Well, when you have some kind of goal on the G, you need the P, which is the plan. You need some kind of plan. And I will tell you, here's the truth. The biggest issue with high achievers: big goal, no plan. Yep. Big goal, no plan. Oh, I want to have a $55 million net worth before I'm 55. And I'm like, bro, you're 42. And like, you have no plan to even like own your house. And like, I'm not saying that's bad, but like a $55 million net worth is a nice big goal, but no plan associated with it. Let's put a plan together so you have a sense of accomplishment around it. So goal and plan. So some kind of goal, some kind of plan. But most of the time when our goal and plan is aligned, what we will see is that we need some kind of support system. And easy way to diagnose someone's business is I can look at it and say, is it a goal problem? Is it a plan problem? Is it a support problem? And you know very quickly what area you need to upgrade in. And so when I'm talking to folks, so I spend a lot of time in my day job talking to folks to come to Real. Like in this case, like people misunderstand this. I tell people, Dan will tell you this, when I do a lot of videos inside for folks at Real, and I start like this. Hey, my name is Sharran Srivatsaa. I'm serve as the president of Real. And that means I work for you. Like I work for Dan. That's my job, right? And because of that, when Dan has an opportunity for me to talk to a big team, I'm not trying to attract that team. I'm trying to coach that team. And the big part about coaching that team is I'm trying to figure out the goal. I'm trying to figure out the plan. I'm trying to figure out the support. And my goal is to figure out if Real is the right support system for them to get to their goal. If it's not, I'll just tell them straight up. I'm like, dude, like I talked to a brokerage recently, and they were small indie, and they gave me their goal and they gave me their plan. And I was like, you guys are doing great. Here's what I would suggest. Real is a bad fit for you. And they're like, what do you mean you don't want us? You've known us 10 years. I'm like, no, dude. Like, you're on a completely different path. In 6 months, if I sold you this dream, in 6 months, we'd be having a really terrible conversation. And so when someone is thinking about a brokerage choice, my offer to them is don't think about the brokerage as a destination. Think about the brokerage as a vehicle to reach your goals.
Ooh. Yep.
Right? So it's not like come to Real and everything will be better. No, not at all. We are the catalyst. We are the accelerator to help you getting there. So if all of you work remotely and you want a culture of belonging, awesome. If you're bringing on a lot of new agents and you don't want to do the training, but you want to outsource the training to the cloud with all of us, that makes sense. So we end up being a really good vehicle for teams because of our compensation model and our culture in the cloud that doesn't add a cost structure to it. So for me, the big thing is if you're thinking about a brokerage switch, it's not a destination. Just think about the brokerage as a vehicle to help you get to whatever goal you want.
I love that. Great question, Dan. I just wanted a little other side story is that Adam Hancock, I was having to meet him yesterday, and he's just like looking at EXP, he's looking at Real, and before he got on the air, I said I would love trying to connect you with him because he's leaving money on the table. The guy already has a massive team and has his brokerage. He's doing things traditionally and has just done amazing for himself. And he's just like, well, if I'm going to start doing agent attraction and coaching and have a course and what have you, I need to think about what am I doing with the cloud-based brokerage so I could be able to rev share and have other opportunities with that as well. And that hit home for me. I was like, whoa, okay, I love that.
You know, the other thing is in all of these models, I'm gonna get ridiculed for this, so I'm super excited for that because you got to put a little spice in the show. A lot of influencers, real estate influencers, think that just because they're influencers and have an audience, right? I mean, I have a 200,000 person email list. Like, I'm very grateful for it. It's been built over 10 plus years. I can write one email and sell something, but I can't write one email and get them all to Real. That's not how it works. So just because someone is a TikTok influencer or is big on YouTube or is a Ryan Serhant or whatever, it doesn't matter. That they think that just because I have a big audience, I can move and monetize my audience to Real. That's a very bad way of thinking about it. If you're of that kind, you're missing the point. That's not how it works. Now, what you may get is you may get a couple of early at-bats. Oh, Sharran moved to Real, Dan moved to Real, Norman moved to Real. Cool. I want to have the conversation. You will have some early conversations because of your network and people may take that. But your ability to move people is not about the past social influence that you have. Your ability to move people is to be there in service of them. And that takes time. That takes support. That takes courage. That takes like a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, showing them that that's the vehicle for them. So I will say that just because you have an audience doesn't mean you're going to crush it, because there's a lot of people that have big audiences that are not doing great in a lot of these kind of network-based companies. But the folks that care end up doing significantly more. I will tell you right now, the folks that are on the top of our revenue share tree who have the biggest networks, if I looked at the similarities between all of them, the one thing I could pull out is that their what I call GASF factor is super high. They care more than most people. And that's why they're able to do that, not because they have insane influence.
I love that. That's absolutely amazing. And that's what it's about. People first. At the end of the day, your legacy isn't about how many acquisitions, how much money you have, how many people you impact, because at the end of the day, who's going to be at your funeral? What are they going to say about you? You showed up, you're amazing, you're all the things. And that's why for me, like, I love having you on because you have such a big heart. I remember Dan told me the story how you literally like went out to Oregon and like met with Dan and his team and the whole nine. I saw on his calendar, I was like, what? Like, that's amazing. You don't see the VP just like fly out and go meet someone. And, you know, obviously Dan's crushing it too. So he deserves that. And I just got to say that speaks a lot about your character, man. It's amazing.
Yeah,
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, people want to connect with the people that have influence in their business and also in the leadership capacity. I think that's when a company gets too big, like that's becomes separated, right? And I think Sharran's one of the few people that like he will do anything if he can to open and pivot his calendar if he can help you. And I think that's what. It's not just the sponsor he referred me to or any of that, right? It's like who's at the top, who's the conductor, who's moving this airplane forward and flying it. And I think that when you're looking at different brokerages, I think that's super important. It's not just about success, but it's also about somebody who cares and gives a shit. So,
Amen.
Yeah, that's where we're at. One last question for me is, as Real starts to grow, and we've like literally doubled in size while we've been working together. Where do you see this path happening? In the next year, 2 years? Yeah, that's like the outlook.
Yeah. So whoever has a crystal ball is lying, right? And the nice part about being in this role and running a public company is, I like telling the truth. And here's the truth. Bigger is not better. Better is better. Mm-hmm. And we're very fortunate that there's other companies in our space who I respect tremendously. And I'll name them because it's important. So Compass did a really good job. And one of the things that Compass did was the market launch strategy that Compass did was brilliant, right? Hey, let's go to San Diego. Let's light up San Diego. We're making this big party in San Diego. San Diego is up and running. Let's go to San Francisco. They did the Uber model. They went in. It was a very VC backed. Let me show you a playbook, how to raise money and how to like deploy that money well. So super kudos to Compass. But the interesting part with that is what you have to do in a model like that is you have to defend a valuation. You're raising money at a certain valuation. You have to defend that valuation. We're fortunate that we didn't go public to defend or to float stock to get that value. We went public to create liquidity for our shareholders, for our agents mainly, right? And so because of that, yes, we are beholden to what Wall Street thinks about how we hit numbers, et cetera. But the scrutiny is not based on the past track record of how much money you've raised and how you have to create this equity valuation overall. So we're a little fortunate that way. That's why I say bigger is not better, better is better, because we don't have to make a really tough choice. And let me explain what that choice is. So EXP is a great company. And let me tell you why. A lot of people are like, Sharran, you think EXP is a competitor? I said, no. For us, I'm so grateful for EXP. And let me tell you why. EXP gave Real the gift of going second. EXP gave Real the gift of going second. Literally, we were able to see, hey, they did all the hard work. They paved the path for a model like this. They paved the path for how to go public. They paved the path, and they're a few years ahead. And they also had to choose, right? They've had to choose between, from the outside looking in, I've never clearly worked at EXP, but the outside looking in, they've had to choose between growth and culture. So what they did, which is very true, is they chose growth and they delegated culture to the network, right? So each network, based on where the network is, has siloed culture. And by the way, I know several EXP teams that have great culture, but it is, if you're in the Dan silo or the Norm silo or in the Sharran silo, you may be good. But if you're in any other silo, you may not feel it, right? So, and the nice part is it's the truth. If you look forward, that's exactly what happened. And I love EXP for that, right? But so it gave us a chance to say, well, do we want to do the same thing? So now we are given the gift of going second. And because of that, we think, all right, well, when I say bigger is not better, better is better, what do I mean? I want to say, well, can we grow and have culture simultaneously? That means if we have to have the tension of growing and having culture simultaneously, we may sometimes grow slower. And that's okay. Because in the long run, that is a value for us. The work hard, be kind value, that's a value for us. And that's a good thing because we are now sticking to our values, right? And the cool part is it is not a competitive thing. It is that we are so focused on what we are doing thing. And that's super, super helpful. So as as far as the outlook goes, I'll give you the vision for like me personally.
Yeah.
There's roughly, call it 1.5-ish licensed agents in the United States. Give or take some. Put Canada aside for a second. I believe that if we, over time, whatever the timeline may be, can get to 10% of agents at Real of the whole U.S. agent population, called 150,000 agents, if we can get there, it does something really powerful. Number one, it validates the concept of true culture in the crowd without actually forcing growth. Number one. Number two, Dan, you know this. If we are the only company in the country right now where we have 100% adoption of our technology, meaning Dan does not get paid unless he uses the app. So everything has to happen on the app. So when we can have that many people on our system, we get to learn to do better. Yep. And that's what I'm really, really excited about. So the switch from like 6,000 to 12,000 agents, that's one thing. But having 12,000 agents and that data on the platform is so powerful. Because of that, we're able to make much better decisions on what features actually make sense and what don't. And so the more people we can have on the platform, I actually think the better product we can build. And the better product we can build, I think the better culture in the cloud we can have. So to me, at the end of the day, it's like, how do I infuse and productize this culture in the cloud by giving everybody else exactly what they need? And to do that, we need some agent scale.
Wow, that is awesome. I'm just going to have to round of applause. I got to say that I love that you're very transparent on both ends. There's not, it's just, hey, this is what it is. And I appreciate that. And I definitely believe that you'll get that 10%. And I definitely love the culture and I love the environment and what you're doing. And I want to say congratulations too with Alex Mosey. I saw that you have an event coming up with that. So that's awesome with Wise. It looks amazing. I love that guy. Read his book.
Yeah.
His second book's coming
Alex
out.
and I are very good friends. I've known Alex before Alex was Alex. So
really?
So Alex
That's
and
awesome.
Alex and Layla and I, Layla is like a sister to me. So Alex and Layla and I have been friends for a very long time.
Wow, that's awesome. I also want to shout out to Raquel. Raquel's a good friend of mine too, and I know that she's also someone that is in your circle, and she's amazing. The Play Bigger event, we were part of that, and Lift Off had an opportunity to sponsor, and so I've seen you around, and I'm just very grateful and humbled to be able to have you on the show today and be able to share your story with our audience. And in closing, what would you like to leave with our viewers and listeners today that they can apply to their business or life so they can have more massive success at the end of the day?
Yeah, I'd leave everyone with this quote, which is, transformations don't happen in isolation, right? Transformations don't happen in isolation. It's very hard in a time like this. If I knew what to do, the reason I was not doing it was something. What is that something? And when people say, well, I'm just not, I'm scatterbrained, I'm an artist, I'm not an implementer, I'm not an operator, I need an integrator. It's good. It's a good starting point for awareness. But if we realize that transformations don't happen in isolation, we immediately give ourselves the gift of saying, who do we need to help us be that catalyst? Who do we need at that point? And I will tell you, if we can get the right who in our corner, it doesn't have to be a paid coach or mentor. It can just be a podcast. It can be a virtual mentor, but we need somebody to reshape our thinking so that it can, kind of short circuit us into action. So if we can answer the question, hey, who do I need in my life? Who do I need in my corner to help me do better? I think it'll be awesome. So I'll give you a 1 minute story, which I think will hammer this out. People say things like this. Oh, if I can do it, you can do it too. So you hear the greatest of greats say, Elon will say, if I can do it, you can do it too. Or Zuckerberg will say, if I can do it, you can do it too. Or Jordan will say, if I can do it, you can do it too. They're downright lying through their teeth. They're like, you and I are not Elon or MJ or we are not. Now, but there's a lot of people that say that. And what I have been thinking a lot about is, instead of modeling the person, like people will say, well, Steve Jobs was just an ass to everybody, so I'm going to be an ass to everybody too. Like, it's not that, right? So instead of doing that, I've been thinking, instead of modeling the person, can I model their support system? Who was MJ's coach? Who was MJ's trainer? Who did MJ have in his corner? Can I go model that support system? And I'll tell you exactly what I did. I love Tony Robbins. I think Tony Robbins is a freak of nature. And I think he's one of the greatest people to live in our generation, right? Like from an educator perspective. I know I can't be Tony, but I can model Tony's support system. So I hired Tony Robbins' speaking coach, Richard Green. I paid him way too much money But in the 3 hours that I had him, he taught me more than I would have learned in 30 years.
Wow.
So all I did was not model Tony, because then I would talk like Tony, be like Tony, speak like Tony, which is not me. But I modeled Tony's support system, which allowed me to then be the Tony version of me, right? And I think all of us have the Tony version of us in us. We just need that catalyst to bring this out. And so I would say, if you think of somebody that you admire and you're super respected, you respect, and you think they're amazing, and you want to model your life around them, see if you can figure out who their support system is and model their support system, because that will get you there so much faster.
Wow. That was absolutely phenomenal. And it's so true. And I love the spin-off on that. And it just makes perfect sense. I'm actually reading Tim Grover's book right now. So it's funny that you just said that.
Tim's awesome.
Going the book. But man, Sharran, this was an absolute pleasure. Dan, thanks so much for making this happen. And I just can only imagine our viewers and listeners out there the massive success or value they're going to get from the episode. Thank you, Sharran. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
Dan, thank you as always. And got to have an amazing co-host, right? And thanks to all our viewers and listeners. We appreciate your time. Be sure to like, subscribe, and the notification bell. Big thank you to Liftoff Agent for sponsoring the show, as it is our intention for you to take things from our episodes, apply to your business, have more massive success, and we will see you on the next one.